Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? Welcome into the pod.
Welcome on in.
It is the final episode of the week, and we are going to go through some buys and sells. Hopefully you had an eventful and well-enjoyed Thursday Night Football experience, and you're getting ready for this game. The game's on Sunday. If you're listening to this on Sunday, welcome to Week 3. As Adam Schefter would say, in bulk. Ready to watch it.
Yes, sir.
Bro, I'm starting to get, we bought Sunday ticket, but I'm just on the friggin' red zone drugs.
Yeah, you don't even... Honestly, I will say Red Zone, I watched it. I've had Red Zone last year, and I watched it sometimes, but this was the first... Week 1 was the first time I actually, made that my top priority of, actually watching Red Zone. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
The kickoffs happen, and Scott Hansen says, 7 hours of commercial-free football. Yes, sir.
And that's what it is.
Yes, sir. I don't even know. We don't need TV timeouts in this business.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Just go to the next game during commercial. It's lit.
For real. So we got Week 3 buys and sells on this episode. We're going to try to get this to you fast. And so you can help improve your team over the weekend. Before we do that, check out our website, fantasygems.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on a podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, any other podcasting platforms, please leave a review, share us with your friends. And then if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. Click the bell for notifications. It leaves any trade questions in the comments. I got a trade question on Twitter today from a guy. He said, Dallas Goedert for George Pickens.
Interesting. Who is he getting?
George Pickens.
Who's his other? Does he have another tight end?
He said he was going to go pick up Zach Ertz. I told him to keep Dallas Goedert for the time being because the Steelers' offense is butt.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's not an awful trade though.
Yeah, it's not terrible. If he wants to go back and make it, he can. But anyway, so we're going to try to give you some trade advice here, starting with the buys. And we'll kick it off with number 1. Rick, by the way, we didn't talk about this show notes. You're good with all these guys?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Number 1 is Christian Watson. Now, Rick can attest to the frustration. If you have him on your team, he has been missing significant chunks of time. But the one thing that we now know that was a concern for Christian Watson going into the season, which pushed him down boards a little bit, was... Is Jordan Love going to be good? And I would say through 2 games, Jordan Love has been serviceable. He's been a good NFL quarterback. And he's done well enough to help his team, A, win football games, and B, put up numbers for fantasy football. So with that being said, Christian Watson stepping back into that wide receiver 1 role whenever it does happen makes him even more of an enviable player. And so what I would do is reach out to the owner that currently has him, see if they're frustrated, and then try to make a trade and see if you can get him on the team before he plays a snap. Because the second he plays a snap, if he ends up being healthy and he's fine, and he's ready to go, and he gets 10 targets and 6 catches and 3 touchdowns, you're gonna be like, what the frick? So, yeah. And the second he has a blow-up game, it's going to be hard to trade for him. So this is the lowest value I think you might be able to get him at this point, and I do it right now. But Rick, how do you feel about Christian Watson being on your team right now in fantasy?
I don't love it. It's very aggravating. You do make a lot of valid points.
It's very aggravating.
The biggest question mark was, is Jordan Love going to be a good NFL quarterback? Right. And I still don't know if he's a good NFL quarterback, but I know he's at least a capable one.
Yeah.
Which is good enough because Rodgers wasn't elite last year in terms of statistics. Mm-hmm. I think Jordan Love is well on his way to being what Rodgers was last year statistically in terms of yards and touchdowns. So that's pretty good because Christian Watson, when he became the guy, was really good last year. So once he becomes a guy, it's going to be good. I think you might even be able to wait a week, though, because as of now, we don't know if he's going to play on Sunday. And if he does play Sunday, I don't think he's going to do much because he's probably going to be limited. I mean, we saw what Judy was after the hamstring. It's not a good matchup either against the Saints. So he could come back this week and get like 6 fantasy points, and then everybody goes even crazier on Watson, and then that's when you go get him.
Yeah.
Because he has Detroit next week and the Raiders the week after that. So you might be able to get away with waiting a week, but I don't mind it because I'll tell you what, he's probably going to be available in a lot of leagues.
Yeah, for sure. Number 2 on the buys list is Michael Pittman Jr. Now, this is a surprise one. This is one of those guys that if he continues to have some form of success in fantasy football, that I'm going to be looking at him and wondering why Rick and I didn't have more opinion on Michael Pittman.
I already know why we did not.
Well, yeah, because we didn't think that Anthony Richardson could throw the rock. But Michael Pittman, first 2 games, he has 23 targets, 16 catches, and hold on a second. 23 targets, 16 catches, 153 yards, and 1 touchdown. And he's had 2 weeks so far of 23 and 13. He's the wide receiver 10 on the season. Now, if the trend continues with Michael Pittman and he actually continues to be really good, then people will start to see him as a wide receiver 1 in fantasy football, and he's going to be harder to trade for. The reason why I think for me Michael Pittman is a buy at this point is because where he was drafted and 2 weeks into the season, like obviously we've gotten some good production, but I don't think the person that has him is probably thinking too highly of him yet. Like they're like, oh, I like what I've seen from him, but is he going to continue this production on a week-to-week basis? You also have the quarterback concerns if Minshew, is it Minshew with the Colts?
Yep.
If he has to start on Sunday, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for him, but
I don't think it's a bad thing.
It might not be a bad thing, but so there's situations surrounding that. The Colts have obviously been far more efficient than we thought they were going to be. So I think Pittman stepping into this role and becoming a guy is good news. And we had him as a breakout last year. Obviously things didn't go the way we wanted to with Michael Pittman, but now he steps into this role. He has decent quarterback play for the most part early in the season. He's been getting targets, and that's what you want to see. So I would target him and see if you can get him on your team. I don't think he's going to be wide receiver 1 for the remainder of the season, but definitely a top 24 guy.
Well, yeah, 100%. And it's really encouraging stuff the first 2 weeks. He did have pretty good matchups, but he had 11 and 12 targets. So those are the numbers I'm really looking at. And even this week, didn't have a monster week in PPR leagues. He had 13 points because he had 8 catches for only 56 yards. But if he can get that efficiency up with his receptions to get a little more yards per catch, he's going to be really good, especially if he keeps that target share up. I don't think Minshew coming in is necessarily a bad thing. Minshew last week was really efficient. And you get Gardner Minshew for a full game, he's probably not going to run a lot. So, you're going to get probably more pass attempts with Minshew than you would with Richardson, even if they might not be the same. But if Richardson plays like he has shown through only a week and a half, but that he's at least capable of throwing the ball pretty well. So I like it for Pittman, especially where he went. He got offered to me early in the year, and I declined it. And I kind of forgot that I didn't take it, but the guy I was trading was also pretty good. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
but
for real.
I think Pittman is a guy that, as you said, because of where he was taken, you could probably get him at kind of cheaper, despite the pretty solid success early on, and that you can pounce on it and get a pretty good value for a guy who's probably going to be a solid wide receiver too.
Now, this third guy is a little bit of a pivot, and I think Rick likes him more than I do, obviously.
But you put him on the list.
I did. It's Breece Hall. Breece Hall,
sure.
And early, so in the draft season, I was down on Breece because of the injury, the ACL injury, and among other things, and
Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, and Dalvin Cook signing and all of that stuff. So
and I was down on him too.
Yeah, but it just, to me, it didn't look like a guy that was going to have a really good season. And then week 1, he comes out, plays 31% of the snaps, has 10 carries for 127 yards. So obviously really good week 1. But to devil's advocate this on myself, James Robinson started the season after his torn Achilles last year really well and ended up not on a football team by the end of the year. So not that that's going to happen to Brees, but sometimes you have an explosive, game early in the season. Then as the season goes along, the injury starts to affect you a little bit more. I don't know if Brees Hall is going to run this Sunday. He's questionable for the game. I don't know what the practice reports look like, but he practiced on Thursday, limited. But this past week, he had 4 carries for 9 yards and 2 targets for 0 catches. So not a great game for Brees Hall. They're still trying to figure out how to mix in Dalvin Cook and Brees and all of that stuff. This is a buy low opportunity. I don't know what the expectation is. Rick can kind of maybe give you a guide on that. But to me, I feel like this is a talented running back on a football team that's probably going to run the ball a lot, who has a couple of decent matchups coming up. And so if there's an opportunity to get Brees Hall on your team, if best case scenario, you end up with a low end running back, worst case scenario, you were able to get him kind of on the cheap and didn't have to spend too much. And he's like a wide receiver. He's a running. Did I say wide receiver 1?
You almost did.
Sorry. A running back, a low end running back 2, at worst. So I think, the range of outcomes is kind of wide for Brees, but if he hits the median, he'll be somewhere around 17 to 18 at the running back position. And I'm okay with that.
I feel like you didn't do a great job promoting your own buy here.
I really didn't because I still am nervous about these injuries here.
I love Brees Hall. I think he's a great buy, and I'll tell you why. I didn't even put him on this list. It was you. Week 1, going into the season, we were both out on him. I didn't even have him on my draft board. Not really. I thought if he slid, I would take him, but I wouldn't really take him where he was going. I was kind of out on his spot. Then week 1 happens, and he looked in the short game as explosive as he did in year 1. He got to like that one and his really big run where he kind of ran out of gas. You could kind of tell that he wasn't 100%. But he looked ridiculously good for a guy coming off a torn ACL. And you gave the James Robinson comparison, and I understand that. And from the standpoint of a guy can have early success coming off an injury, but still not be, maybe the same player. James Robinson was coming off a torn Achilles, and he sucked anyway. He's not a great running back. He never has been. He just was a workhorse. He was an undrafted guy. He was okay. I shouldn't say sucked. That's a little mean. I'm getting a little crazy here. Brees Hall was, outside of Bijan, was probably the best prospect in the last 3-4 years at the running back position. He was and has been very highly sought after the last couple of years. And he is someone who, talent level, if he didn't tear his ACL last year, had a chance to be a top 5 running back. He's only 22 years old. The ACL is not quite the same as it is, or not even close to an Achilles. An Achilles is kind of impossible to come back from. A torn ACL is not. And yeah, he had not a great week in week 2 at all. He only had 4 carries, 4 total touches. And he complained about it after the game. He said, they asked him why the run game sucked, and he said, because I got 4 touches. And he's right. And the coaching staff knows that. And what did the Jets coaching staff usually do when a player complains? They give him the ball more, like a Garrett Wilson last year.
Yeah.
Unless you're Elijah Moore, then he gets buried, but I don't think that's going to happen with Brees Hall. I expect him to, starting this week, to get a lot more touches. And they said going into the year that they were going to ease him in. So he's going to – it makes a lot of sense that they didn't use him a lot in week 1. I don't think they even planned to use him that much. They didn't use him a lot in week 2.
Yeah.
Starting now, they're going to use him more and more and more. And it's clear – I didn't watch a ton of the week 2 game against the Cowboys, but in week 1, Brees Hall was a better running back than Dalvin Cook. It's just clear at this point, Dalvin Cook, I don't think at this point in his career is as good as Brees Hall. Even coming off the torn ACL, I think Brees Hall is a better player. He's a massive buy for me. And I know the range of outcomes, I don't think they're as wide as you say. I think his floor is higher unless he re-injures himself.
Yeah, I don't think the floor is higher.
And I do think his ceiling is pretty high for more the second half of the season. Maybe not right now. Yeah. I think you might be able to wait on a Hall. This week against the Pats isn't a great matchup. So, next couple weeks, who knows? But that second half of the season to me is juicy.
Okay, let's get to the sells really quickly. Number 1, we have Brian Robinson, who just dropped a 28-point game this week. And listen, this guy is not a good running back. I hate to
28 fantasy points, bro.
Rain on people's parade and people who like him. But
he's the RB3, bro.
Yeah, I know. But this is like, I don't think he's going to continue to be the RB3 on the season. I don't think Washington really has faced, like, what did they face? Arizona and...
Which was a great matchup. Denver's
slightly tougher, but their defense is not great. But the two games that they played have not been super tough for Washington. And so I look at this situation as one where Brian Robinson's taking advantage of some opportunity when the schedule starts to turn a little bit and this team starts to get into some negative game scripts. I don't think it's going to be a benefit to Brian Robinson. So I would take advantage. I'm not even saying that like he won't continue being okay or good.
But he won't
he's not going to
he probably won't top 10 running back.
He probably won't perform the way that he is right now, and this is the highest that you're going to have him on the season. So if there's a running back needy team that you can go to and say, listen, this guy scored 28 points, here's the information to prove it to you, and sell them sell that running back to them, then I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you can definitely sell him high right now. I'll say that, especially with teams looking for running backs with the amount of injuries we've had at the running back position.
Yeah.
And he's had a really good start to the year. I think Washington clearly likes him more than Gibson. I think at this point that's obvious. He's going to get the bulk of the carries, but in the games where they do struggle on offense and maybe have tougher matchups, I don't really see him going crazy. He's still not really a pass-catching running back. I know he has a receiving touchdown, but he still only has 3 catches in 2 games, so it's not like he's their pass catching back. So if he's the pure running back there and gets mostly carries for his touches, and he's not super efficient, I don't think that's a long-term success. I don't think he's going to be bad. I actually think he's an okay flex rest of the season, but he's not going to be an RB1.
For sure. Number 2 on the sells list is Kyle Pitts. And we said on our starts and sit show that this week is it. He's a start. I don't know.
Can you even sell him?
I don't know. Somebody out there, like I saw somebody a week ago bragging that they got Kyle Pitts in Dynasty, and I'm like, is that even brag worthy anymore?
I don't know.
I'm done with Kyle Pitts. Like I can't. This point,
I was going to say if they drafted Caleb Williams, sure, but they're 2-0, so they're already out of the contention.
If he continues to go negative and not have successful games, then it will get worse for Kyle Pitts. Like, he'll become droppable. So, like, at this point, while people still think that there's hope for Kyle Pitts to be good, you might be able to deal him or trade him in some way, shape, or form. But if he continues to have these bad games over the course of 5 or 6 weeks, then he becomes droppable and no one's going to want to have him on their team. So I just look at Kyle Pitts as a situation where if he doesn't start turning around like at this point, then, trade him, dump him, see what you can get for him and move on, because it's not worth the hassle.
If he continues to suck, he really might be droppable, which is kind of crazy to say.
Don't drop him right now. Try to trade him, but
No, try to trade him. And you know what? He might have a great week this week and then might even give you more of an opportunity to trade for him. But we're both very, very scared of Kyle Pitts right now, and I'm glad he's on my team. I think I would be very nervous. I do have him in one dynasty league, but I'm not really too stressed out about it. But in redraft for sure, and even dynasty, I'm less excited about it. I'll say that. But redraft for sure, it's just – I hate the whole the passing situation there with the Falcons. It's so disgusting. If you can sell them off name value, do it. But we're counting down the limit here to trade him unless he has a big week this week.
For real. All right, and this one is the toughest one that I think we have because it is our breakout.
Actually, my breakout.
Garrett Wilson.
Yep.
Moment of silence for Garrett Wilson's season. Now, I thought that with Rodgers, obviously he was going to be really good, but even when he went down, I was like, I think he'll be fine.
I texted you the moment that happened, and I was like,
because I still thought he could be like a mid-range wide receiver too, but it looks like Zach got worse. And honestly, he doesn't. He looked. I
would
better
say
at
get worse
times
because he wasn't good last year. He was awful last year.
He was bad last year, but at least at times he was.
Garrett Wilson's good games last year did not come from Zach Wilson. They came from Mike White.
Yeah, so I don't think Garrett Wilson's going to have massive amounts of success with Zach Wilson. I think it's going to be a struggle bus, and I don't know where he's going to end up in fantasy football, so that is why I would trade him. I trade him. Like, he's still got, like Rick said with Kyle Pitts, the name value. He's still got that breakout potential. It's 2 weeks into the season. He just came off a decent week because he broke off a touchdown run. But, like, if what it takes for Garrett Wilson to have success is these massive touchdown runs, then, like...
these crazy plays, one-handed catches, 70 yards.
Right. It's just, if that's what it takes for him to have good weeks in fantasy football...
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. You can't continue to have success with Garrett Wilson doing that, and you can trade his butt right now and get something for him to a team that maybe isn't staring at the situation going, oh, well, that's because of 2 big plays. You know what I mean? Because there's somebody in your league not paying attention that closely. But like you know, trade him away, see if you can get high value for him, and then, you know, actually get a return back on the investment that you put in Garrett Wilson, because obviously it sucks that, you know, Rodgers went down. You couldn't account for that situation in fantasy football, but Garrett Wilson not having a breakout season this year because of Aaron Rodgers going down is definitely in the cards at this point. And I think just based on the first 2 games, the way that I've seen, unless something crazy happens, like the Vikings lose 6 straight games and then they trade for Kirk Cousins, unless something like that happens, like, it's just not going to happen for Garrett Wilson. So, and to be honest with you, getting a quarterback like this at this point in the year, like, if they did it tomorrow, maybe it works.
I would still prefer it over Kirk Cousins. Over Zach Wilson.
Of course. But, like, at this point, who are they getting? You know what I mean? Like, the Vikings aren't going to trade Kirk Cousins, like, halfway through the season. Like, it's not going to happen. They'll deal with Kirk Cousins after the season. If they have a losing season, they can get Caleb Williams or something. But so the replacements for Zach, if he starts sucking, aren't even that good out there. You're talking Matt Ryan or Carson Wentz or something. People still holding out hope that
they trade for Minshew.
Freaking Matt Ryan is working for, like, Fox right now. It's
he's not
1 o'clock, so he's probably not even coming back. But I mean, he might if they called. But
maybe
he'd say "frick you, Fox" and go back to the NFL. But, you know, anyway, Garrett Wilson, you know, you can trade him now for the value that he still has, and then, you know, hopefully you do that before he starts having some of these bad weeks, because when that happens, people are going to start realizing what the true value on Wilson is, and you're not going to be able to deal him anymore.
Yeah, this is probably one of the most saddest for me. Yeah. Garrett Wilson's been my guy. He was my guy before he came in the league. He was my favorite wide receiver pre-draft. The Jets drafted him. You said, I have a Jets fetish. I said, no.
You do.
I just like... The players they've drafted the last couple of years.
You have a Jets helmet and, like, a Joe Namath jersey in your club.
I like the players they drafted. All right, I liked them before they were on the Jets.
Boo.
You can say that about all the guys I like on the Jets. But Garrett Wilson has always been my guy, and this year I went all in on Garrett Wilson. I went all in. I was drafting him as much as I could. He was getting drafted as, like, the wide receiver 10. I thought it was great value. With Rodgers there, I had said all offseason my biggest thing was he is getting the biggest quarterback upgrade of anyone in the league, because Zach Wilson last year was the worst quarterback in the NFL. He was 32 of 32. Yeah. He blows chunks, and he's just awful. He's an awful quarterback, and he doesn't have to deal with him anymore because he has Aaron Rodgers. Wrong. I'm stupid. I'm an idiot.
Wrong.
Because now Zach Wilson is the quarterback. Worst quarterback in football. Worst starting quarterback in football. We're back to where he was last year. And you can trade him for better value than that. But the thing that annoys me the most is through 2 weeks, you see how good Garrett Wilson could be. You see it.
Yeah, he's
that touchdown in week 1, ridiculous.
The
touchdown in week 2,
come to the
ridiculous.
Pats. We can throw you the
Bring
ball.
Bring it to the Pats, yeah. He's a super talented wide receiver. I think he has the ability to be one of those, like, you know, I don't know if he's Jefferson or Chase, or Tyreek Hill, but I think he could be that next tier right below that Stephon Diggs, that Devontae Adams. Like, I think he's that level
and guess
player.
What? You don't get to watch it this year. Yeah. Sucks. Well, and to be honest with you, I think Rodgers is going to kind of be cooked.
Yeah,
so
I think that's a possibility. But cooked Rodgers, this is like you could say Rodgers cooked. You could say, he's not going to be the same when he comes back. If he's the 23rd best quarterback in the NFL when he comes back, I will take that over Zach Wilson.
But it still won't make Garrett a break.
It probably won't make him a breakout, but it could,
or
if he's wide receiver
Rodgers
like 23 this year
with
Zach Wilson,
says,
he could be wide receiver 14 with a cooked Aaron Rodgers.
But the problem that we have is that they're going to go back to square one in 2 years.
Yeah, square one at this point might be better than Zach Wilson. I'm not even joking. It might
That's
be
fair. That's fair. It's more or less
CJ Stroud. You get a guy like CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson.
He's going to have to elevate the quarterback that he has instead of complain at some point. You know what I mean? Like he's going to have to
He's not complaining this year so far.
No, not yet.
So far. I mean, if they keep sucking.
Brees has, so it's starting.
Yeah, Brees, yeah.
But anyway, so they're your buys and sells. We have Christian Watson, Michael Pittman, Brees Hall as buys, Brian Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Garrett Wilson as sells. So be sure to get those guys on and off your team. Ship them out. Figure some things out. If you want to keep Brian Robinson, go ahead, I guess. But anyway, have a great weekend, guys. Enjoy football. Talk to you later.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.